Hospitals are where lives are saved, where families wait in tearful hope, where doctors wear white coats like armor and nurses battle death daily. But what happens when the danger isn't in the disease, but in the people paid to heal you? At St. Callista Medical Center, patients were checking in with treatable conditions and leaving in body bags. And no one asked why. Until one nurse saw something she shouldn't have and refused to look away. This is the story of how a single shift spiraled into a nightmare of cover-ups, medical corruption, and a secret so deadly, it had to be buried beneath the hospital itself. Welcome to Code Black, Secrets Behind St. Callista's. The overhead lights hummed faintly, casting a sterile white glow over the polished floors of St. Callista's ICU. Monitors beeped in rhythmic intervals, a symphony of heartbeats, oxygen levels, and automated alerts. Nurses moved like ghosts through the halls, clipboards tucked under their arms, eyes red from exhaustion. Nurse Liana Cruz, 28, checked her watch. Her third consecutive night shift. Her bones ached, her temples pulsed, and the cheap coffee from the staff lounge had long stopped working. But her senses were sharp, they had to be. She was responsible for 5 critical patients that night, all stable, all charted, all accounted for. Except one. Room 406. It had been quiet for the last 2 hours, unusually so. Mr. Edward Brenner, 67, had been admitted with pneumonia and early-stage heart failure. Serious, yes, but nowhere near fatal. He'd been chatty earlier in the evening, even asking Liana about her favorite books. She had smiled and promised to bring him one from the staff library. Now, the room light was off. The monitor was flatlined. No code alert. No staff rush. Just silence. Liana froze. She stepped inside, heart thudding. Mr. Brenner lay motionless on the bed, his mouth slightly open. His skin was pale, too pale, and his fingers hung loosely by his side, already cooling. The monitor was disconnected. Not silenced. Disconnected. Liana's breath caught in her throat. She reached for the call button. It had been ripped out of the wall. Natural causes, Dr. Morgan Havelock muttered flatly, flipping through Brenner's chart without looking up. Liana stood across from him, jaw clenched. He was stable 4 hours ago. His vitals were improving. You even said, pneumonia can turn quickly in elderly patients, Havelock interrupted, closing the chart with a snap. We'll log it accordingly. No need for an autopsy. No autopsy? She repeated. What about the disconnected monitor? The missing call button? He looked up slowly. There was no empathy in his eyes, only calculation. This is a busy ward, Nurse Cruz. People die here every night. Get used to it. He turned and walked away. Liana stared at the cold coffee in her cup. Around her, the lounge buzzed with quiet chatter, microwave hums, and exhausted laughter. But her mind wouldn't stop spinning. She pulled out her tablet and opened the patient history log. Mr. Brenner wasn't the first. There had been 5 unexpected deaths in the last 3 weeks, all on night shifts, all recorded under natural causes. 3 had no autopsies. 2 were under Havelock's care. Each one had their vitals stabilizing just hours before they died. Each one died in rooms on the same side of the ICU. Her hands trembled as she swiped through the logs. Then she saw it. A system note buried under patient 003120. Manual override, CAM 406 deactivated at 044. The timestamp matched Brenner's approximate time of death. The hallway camera had been turned off. Liana stood in front of Miguel, the night security officer, a nerdy tech whiz with a coffee addiction and a mild crush on her. You're not allowed to request footage, he said, nervous. Only admin, legal, or risk management can do that. This is a matter of patient safety, she insisted. Please, just show me room 406 between midnight and 1 a.m. He hesitated, then slid the monitor toward her and tapped a few keys. The screen went black. CAM 406 file is missing, he frowned. Not corrupted. Manually deleted. Someone with admin access wiped it. But why? Before he could answer, a folder auto-refreshed on the side panel. A single file blinked into view. 406_death_log.mov. Miguel clicked on it instinctively. What they saw next chilled them both. The footage was dim, night vision tinted. Mr. Brenner lay asleep. Then, a figure entered, masked, gloved, head down. They adjusted the foredrip, pulled something from a coat pocket, a syringe. Efficient. Cold. Then they turned to the camera. For a brief second, their eyes reflected in the night vision. Blue eyes. No eyebrows. The figure raised one gloved finger to their lips. Then the feed cut to static. Liana stood on the rooftop, trying to steady her breath in the cold night air. She felt like she was unraveling. Was this real? Someone was murdering patients. And they had access to medical equipment, admin credentials, camera control. And worse, they were covering it up. She called her mentor, Nurse Dorcas, who had worked St. Callista for 23 years. "I think someone's killing patients," Liana whispered. A long pause on the other end. Then Dorcas replied, voice trembling, "You need to be careful. You're not the first to ask questions like that. What happened to the others? Gone. One resigned. One died in a car crash. One just disappeared. Listen to me, Liana, don't do anything stupid. Don't go back in that room. Don't talk to anyone else." Liana hung up, but it was already too late. She returned to room 406. It was freshly cleaned. Bedmade. Monitor reconnected. Like nothing had happened. She crouched down by the four-waste bin, fingers trembling, and pulled out the used bag. Clear liquid. Still dripping. No patient label. She held it up to the light. A faint trace of red floated inside. Just then, a shadow fell over her. She looked up, heart stopping. Dr. Havelock. No lab coat. Just his green scrubs and those cold, blue eyes. "Looking for something?" he asked, smiling without warmth. Liana stood slowly, hiding the bag behind her. "Just doing inventory." He stepped closer, the hallway silent. "You're new here, Cruz. You're sharp, but you're asking the wrong kind of questions." Liana tried to push past him. He gently but firmly blocked her. Then leaned in and whispered, "You don't want to end up like Nurse Becca." She froze. Becca, the nurse who had died in the car accident 3 weeks ago. The one who'd been working the night shift. The one who covered room 406. Liana shoved her bag into her locker, hands shaking. She pulled out her phone and began recording a voice note. "This is Nurse Liana Cruz, St. Callista Medical Center. I believe there's a pattern of suspicious deaths happening in ICU West. I've seen surveillance footage. I believe I'm being watched. If anything happens to me..." She stopped mid-sentence. A slip of paper fluttered out of her locker and landed at her feet. She picked it up, heart hammering. One line, scrawled in neat, surgical penmanship. "We see you. Next time, we'll let the cameras roll." Liana's paranoia deepens as she begins hearing strange sounds coming from the ICU at night. Whispers, footsteps, shadows in surgical masks. But when a patient manages to secretly record something horrifying in the middle of the night, Liana realizes the killer may not be acting alone. Liana sat stiffly at the nurse's station, her eyes darting to every shadow. She tried to focus on charting, but her hands kept trembling. The note from her locker, "We see you," was tucked deep in her scrub pocket. Dorcas passed behind her, refilling 4 bags, her face drawn with exhaustion and something else, fear. "Did you tell anyone?" Liana whispered. Dorcas didn't answer immediately. Then, softly, "The ones who ask too many questions don't last here. You're smart. You want to keep your license, your life, let it go." But Liana couldn't let it go. Not after what she saw on that footage. Not after seeing Havelock by the door to room 406, calm as ever. "I can't unsee what I saw," she said. "And you can't tell me that you haven't noticed something's wrong here." Dorcas didn't deny it. Instead, she looked around and said, "You ever work on a haunted floor, Cruz?" Liana blinked. "What?" Dorcas leaned in closer. "I'm not saying I believe in ghosts. But there's a reason half the night staff refuse to rotate into ICU West. Too many patients whisper about a man in a cap who walks in and out of rooms after dark." She stepped away. "Just be careful. They don't just kill patients here. Emery Floss, 74, stroke patient recovering in room 412, had been placed under night observation after reporting hallucinations during previous shifts. Most staff assumed the old man's meds were messing with him. But tonight he had something else. A phone. Hidden under his pillow, the old man hit record. Liana was checking vitals 2 doors down when she heard it. A faint squeaking noise, like rubber soles on tile. Then came the whisper. "You'll sleep better soon. You won't feel a thing." She burst into room 412. Emery sat bolt upright, drenched in sweat, his eyes wild. "There was someone here," he whispered. "I saw him. He had a mask. He was messing with my 4." Liana checked the bag. No punctures, no tampering. But Emery shoved the phone into her hand. "Check the video," he gasped. He was real. Liana slipped into the emergency stairwell and locked the door behind her. Her hands shook as she tapped play. The footage was shaky, dark, but clear enough. A tall figure stepped into the room at 12:39 a.m. White surgical mask, green scrubs, blue gloves. He moved to Emery's 4 stand, pulled out something from his pocket, a small, silver-capped vial. Then, he looked straight into the camera. Liana paused it. Those eyes again. Blue, cold, no eyebrows. Same as the man from room 406. The same figure who'd left the note in her locker? How could he keep slipping past security cameras? Why wasn't anyone seeing him? Liana found Jalen, a night orderly who had worked in the hospital 5 years, the kind who knew every rumor, every corner. "You ever hear of a guy with no eyebrows sneaking into patient rooms?" she asked, watching his face. Jalen went pale. "Don't joke like that. I'm serious." He looked around, then pulled her into the corner of the empty cafeteria. "We used to call him the shadow surgeon. Some urban legend. A guy who did illegal procedures in the basement back in the 90s before the hospital changed management. Staff would joke he never left." She frowned. "You don't actually believe that, do you?" "I didn't," he said slowly, "until last year. We had a patient wake up mid-sedation during an emergency trach procedure. He swore someone whispered to him while he was paralyzed. Said he saw eyes watching from above the light. Why didn't anyone report it?" "They did. The psych team had him committed." Liana had to know more. With Jalen on lookout, she snuck into the basement records room, marked "Employees Only." Dust coated the shelves. Old files dating back 30 years lined the cabinets. She found a locked drawer labeled Floor 4, Incidents 1994 to 1998. A screwdriver pried it open. Dozens of complaint slips. Anonymous letters. Staff resignations. Most were redacted, but she found one. "To whom it may concern, I refuse to work nights on ICU West. This is the 3rd patient in 6 weeks who died during routine care. Someone is tampering with meds. I found an unlabeled syringe under a dead man's bed and was told to mind my duties. This isn't negligence. This is murder." Signed, Rebecca G. Liana's blood ran cold. Rebecca, the nurse who died in the car crash. Liana returned to the floor, shaken, only to find Emery's room empty. The bed stripped. The monitors turned off. She rushed to the nurse's desk. "Where's Mr. Floss?" The desk nurse, Brandon, aloof and always scrolling TikTok, didn't look up. Transferred to step down around 3. "Did he walk out?" "Nope. Transported." Liana's stomach dropped. Something was wrong. Transfers didn't happen mid-shift. Not without approval. She checked the system. No transfer record. No patient under the name Emery Floss in step-down, observation, or long-term. She searched his patient ID, archived. Vanished. Just like room 406. Liana caught Dorcas leaving through the staff door, pulling on her jacket, a cigarette trembling between her fingers. "You knew about Rebecca, didn't you?" Liana asked. She tried to report something like this and then crashed her car. "You knew her? What really happened?" Dorcas didn't deny it. She was smart. Like you. Thought she could be the hero. She took a long drag. After she died, her locker was emptied by risk management. All her notes. Her USBs. Gone. But who's covering this up? Dorcas hesitated. You think Havelock's the top of the food chain? He's just the front man. There's a whole system behind him. Legal. Admin. Maybe higher. Liana looked toward the hospital entrance. I'm not letting this go. Dorcas grabbed her wrist, eyes wide. Then you better watch your back. Liana reached home, exhausted but wired. She set her phone down, kicked off her shoes, and opened her laptop to back up Emery's video. But the file was gone. Deleted. She searched through her cloud backup. Empty. Panic surged through her. She grabbed her phone to call Jalen. Then, a knock at the door. She froze. 3 slow knocks. She peeked through the peephole. No one was there. But taped to her door was a new slip of paper. 4 words. You're running out time. Liana attempts to request an independent autopsy for one of the unnatural deaths, but legal walls rise fast. She finds evidence of drug trials being carried out on unconscious patients, and when she tries to expose it, her closest ally vanishes. Worse, a patient she thought had died shows up in her building, alive and afraid. But he won't talk, because he says they're listening. Boys, they said it was pneumonia, that his heart just gave out, that there was no need to look deeper. But when Nurse Liana Cruz requested an autopsy, she didn't just hit a wall, she ran straight into a machine built to silence truth. Now a deeper secret is surfacing, one that links the hospital's unexplained deaths to underground drug trials, missing patients, and something even darker, something she was never meant to see. Liana Cruz stood stiffly in front of Dr. Janet Rhodes, the hospital's risk management director, early 50s, a precise blonde bob, round glasses, and a stare that made you feel instantly small. I'm requesting a formal autopsy for patient Edward Brenner, room 406, Liana said calmly. His death was sudden, unexplained. I believe there are grounds. Dr. Rhodes cut her off. The death has already been certified and filed. As natural causes. Pneumonia complications. A second postmortem is unnecessary and disruptive. To whom? Liana asked, voice shaking. To the truth. Rhodes leaned forward. Do you have a medical degree, Nurse Cruz? No. Then let the licensed physicians handle this. I suggest you focus on patient care. But I saw the footage. There is no footage, Rhodes snapped. That file doesn't exist in our system, and you're now in violation of protocol by attempting to access restricted data. She handed Liana a thin manila envelope. A formal warning notice. Push this any further, Rhodes said coolly, and we'll have to open a disciplinary review. Liana slid into a booth across from Jalen, his cap pulled low, a plate of untouched scrambled eggs in front of him. They're stonewalling me. No autopsy. No acknowledgement of the video. Nothing. Jalen leaned in. You were right about something else too. He slid her a printout, a list of patients. 5 of the last 7 who died under Havelock's watch were listed as uninsured or non-consenting. But I ran a secondary report. He pulled up his laptop. Each one was enrolled, without permission, into Trial 112B, a drug trial run through the Aphrixis Institute, a private biomedical firm that uses St. Callista as a test site. Liana scrolled through. These are experimental sedatives? Immunomodulators? Some of this isn't even FDA approved. Jalen nodded. It's a loophole. Emergency use exemptions. But they're supposed to get written consent. None of these patients had that. They're using them like lab rats. Worse, some of the patients had notes next to their names. No contact, DNR override initiated. Liana met Miguel again, the security tech who had helped her access room 400 and SIXS footage. This time, he was scared. They flagged your name, Cruz. You're on the internal watch list. If you try to pull anything else from the servers, you'll trigger a system alert. I just need one thing, she said. Any record of Trial 112B. Any footage of medication carts, unusual shifts, nighttime patterns. Please. Miguel hesitated, then handed her a flash drive. I've been keeping copies, he said. Backups. For myself. In case I ever needed to blow the whistle. What's on here? One clip you need to see. She didn't watch the file yet. She wanted one more piece of confirmation, someone who had seen it from inside. A patient, a witness. Except Emery Floss had disappeared. No chart, no transfer. But she remembered his face, frail, anxious. A gold tooth. Liana spent 2 hours calling rehab centers, long-term care facilities, psych wards. Then she got a hit. Emery Floss admitted yesterday at St. Bart's Clinic for the mentally impaired, transfer from St. Callista. She drove there immediately. St. Bart's was cold and gray, a fortress with barbed fencing. She flashed her badge, lied her way through, and found Emery, locked in a low-security ward, pacing, murmuring to himself. "Emery," she whispered, kneeling. "It's me, Liana. From ICU. Do you remember?" He looked at her slowly. His pupils were dilated. His hands trembled. "They told me not to talk to you." "Who?" He looked up, voice low. "The ones in white coats, with red pins. They say they'll come back for me if I talk. That they'll open my head again." Liana felt her skin crawl. "Did they do something to you?" He nodded. "They used wires. At night. When I couldn't move." Then, a security guard approached from behind. "Time's up, ma'am." Emery lunged forward suddenly and whispered, "They're not testing medicine. They're testing control." Back home, Liana inserted Miguel's flash drive. One folder. One file. Trial footage _ night shift 414.mov. She hit play. The video was taken from an overhead hallway cam. At first, normal. Nurses pass, carts roll by. Then, 2:17 a.m. A staffer in scrubs enters a patient's room, room 414. He wheels in a covered tray. Unplugs the 4. Injects something. But then, he pulls out a small handheld scanner and waves it over the patient's head. The screen flashes, engaged. Liana paused. Boom. The figure looks up briefly at the camera. Not Havelock. Someone else. But familiar. And then she remembered. Judge Malcolm Malden. She'd seen him once, during a hospital donor visit. His face was plastered across the hospital's website. What the hell was a federal judge doing administering experimental drugs at 2 a.m.? The next day, Liana tried to show the footage to Omar, a medical intern who had been shadowing Havelock. He agreed to meet her in the atrium, but he never showed. Liana checked with HR. No intern by that name was ever registered. His badge? She called his number. Disconnected. Later that night, she found a note slipped under her door. One line. "We pulled him out before they could." And attached, a photo. Omar, lying in a hospital bed, eyes open wide, mouth taped shut. Liana sat in her dark apartment, curtains drawn. Every creak sounded like a knock. Every knock felt like a warning. Then, a soft knock. 1, 2, 3. She grabbed a flashlight and looked through the peephole. No one. She opened the door slowly. Nothing but a small white envelope. Inside, a photo. A woman. Her mother. Sedated. In a hospital bed. Hooked to a machine. Marked XA1. Liana dropped the envelope, heart pounding. Her mother died 2 years ago. Or so she thought. Liana follows the trail to a hidden part of the hospital, Ward XA1, where comatose patients are kept off record, used for high-risk procedures that never reach paper. There, she uncovers the most disturbing truth yet. This isn't about money anymore. It's about psychological manipulation, human control, and a new kind of power built inside the hospital's walls. And someone she thought was dead is still breathing. They told her her mother died, that she was gone, buried, mourned, and laid to rest. But the truth Nurse Liana Cruz uncovered shattered everything she believed. Deep beneath St. Callista Medical Center is a ward that doesn't appear on blueprints, payrolls, or patient records. A ward where the comatose are kept alive, not for care, but for something far more sinister. Now Liana is risking everything to find it, even if it means becoming a patient herself. The photo lay on Liana's kitchen counter, illuminated by the rising sun. Her mother, Eva Cruz, dressed in a hospital gown, unconscious, wires hooked to her scalp and chest, tubes down her throat. The photo was timestamped 2 weeks ago. The background? A hospital ward, but not one Liana recognized, not in any wing she'd ever worked. But something in the corner of the photo stood out. A metallic plate above the door. XA1. Liana had worked in St. Callista for almost 3 years. She knew every department code, Med-Surg, ICU, Neuro, Oncology. But XA1? It didn't exist. Not on any public map. Which meant it was either off the grid, or never meant to be found. Jalen paced nervously as Liana laid out the photo, a crumpled floor blueprint of St. Callista and Miguel's flash drive. That ward's not on the employee layout, Jalen muttered. I've been through the tunnels. There's a sub-basement below pathology. Supposedly condemned. Supposedly, Liana echoed. But people go down there. She showed him the footage again. Judge Malden scanning a patient with a strange device. Late at night, no staff around. He's not just funding this, she said. He's part of it. And if they have my mother down there. Jalen looked at her, brow furrowed. You really think she's alive? Liana didn't answer. She just nodded. I'm coming with you, he said. Liana and Jalen entered through an old maintenance corridor behind the laundry shaft. One she'd discovered in old fire escape diagrams. Silence. The fluorescent bulbs above flickered, some long burned out. Water dripped rhythmically through rusted pipes. They reached a steel door labeled restricted, staff only. The card reader blinked red. Jalen pulled out an old maintenance badge he'd borrowed from a terminated employee months ago. Green light. The door hissed open. They stepped into darkness. Then, the overhead speaker crackled. Code black initiated. Isolation in progress. The lights went red. Liana's stomach dropped. They triggered something. The hallway was unlike any she'd seen in the hospital. Sterile, windowless, lined with locked doors. And inside them, patients. Dozens of them. Unconscious. Some pale and shivering. Others strapped down. All connected to complex machines that didn't look like standard ventilators. Liana checked the nameplates. Most had no names. Only numbers. She stopped at one. Subject 19, Cruz, Eva. Her hands trembled as she opened the door. Her mother lay on a medical slab, unmoving, a small blinking node attached to the side of her temple. Heart rate, steady. Breathing, shallow. Alive. Mom, she whispered. No response. Jalen scanned the machines. This isn't life support. This is neuromonitoring. Cognitive activity mapping. Liana blinked. They're running tests on her brain? More like controlling it. They searched the back room and found a set of files stored digitally on a terminal. Trial 112B wasn't about curing illness. It was about obedience. The experimental drugs being administered weren't designed to heal. They were prototypes for a neurobehavioral compound called Subverix. Codenamed Project Compliance. The notes read like a dystopian novel. Early tests suggest partial suppression of resistance in 36% of comatose patients. Subjects retain physiological responses but do not exhibit voluntary defiance when administered scripted stimuli. Real-world application potential high. Ideal for crisis control, incarceration, or military scenarios. Liana scrolled faster, pulse racing. These weren't treatments. They were weapons. The door to the monitoring room slid open. Dr. Havelock. Confident. Clapping slowly. I told you to stop digging, Nurse Cruz. Jalen stepped forward. You're experimenting on people. Innocent patients. I'm advancing science, Havelock replied. Your mother was selected because she was brain dead after her aneurysm. No family to object, or so we thought. You forged her death certificate. He smirked. Judge Malden ensured the legal paperwork was ironclad. You'll find no loophole. No whistleblower protections. Liana's voice cracked. You're killing people. Not killing, he said. Rewriting. He reached for a console, ready to call security. But Jalen moved first. Smash. A crash of glass against Havelock's head. He dropped, unconscious. Alarms blared as they wheeled Eva Cruz's bed into the hallway, searching for an elevator or lift. The red lights blinked faster. Automated security mode, active. Doors began sealing behind them. "They've locked the whole ward down," Jalen panted. "We'll go through records," Liana said. "There's a service ramp for bio-waste." They reached the chute, but Eva's bed wouldn't fit. Liana froze. "I'm not leaving her." "You'll die here," Jalen said. She stared at her mother's unconscious face, then took the file drive and shoved it into Jalen's hand. "Take this. Get it to the press. To anyone. I'll distract them." "Liana. Go." He hesitated, then ran. Liana wheeled her mother's bed back into the open hallway. Footsteps echoed. Janet Rhodes. Judge Malden. 2 private security guards. She stood her ground. "You drugged patients. You forged papers. You turned a hospital into a lab." Malden looked amused. "You're just a nurse. No badge. No credentials. No credibility." She held up the photo from her locker, the one of Eva. "Proof enough." "Not if you disappear," Rhodes said softly. "People vanish all the time in medicine. One wrong 4-line. One bad charting entry." Malden gestured. A guard stepped forward with a syringe. Just then, a boom rattled the air. Security doors burst open. Jalen, with a fire extinguisher. Miguel behind him. Chaos erupted. The syringe clattered. Liana grabbed her mother's bed and ran. They wheeled Eva out through the underground service ramp into the cold night air. Sirens in the distance. But no police. Not yet. Miguel handed Liana a phone. "It's uploading to 3 independent data leaks. Medical fraud. Experimental testing. Names, signatures, everything." Jalen looked at her. "We're not done." Liana nodded, tears in her eyes, holding her mother's hand. "She's still breathing." And for the first time in 2 years, Liana let herself believe her mother might come back. With the data leaks spreading online, the hospital launches a legal offensive, painting Liana as an unstable nurse with a history of delusions. As her job, license, and freedom crumble, a devastating twist hits home. Her mother begins to wake up. But someone from inside the hospital finds her first, and files a secret "do not resuscitate" order in her name. Now Liana is in a race to stop her mother's death. Then, Liana held the photo of her mother, drugged, motionless, yet unmistakably alive, in trembling hands. There was something else in the envelope. A folded scrap of surgical paper. She opened it. One word, written in faint red marker. "Halcyon." The word echoed. Not because she recognized it, but because it triggered something familiar. She dug through a shoebox of old journals from nursing school. And there, in her mother's neat handwriting on a torn page from her diary. They called it Project Halcyon. I called it my mistake. If anything happens to me, find the key. It's in the doll. Liana blinked. The doll? She rushed to her closet. Inside an old storage bin was a worn-out stuffed giraffe from her childhood. She unstitched the back. Inside, a small metal key etched with 3 letters. XA1. Dressed in scrubs and using Miguel's borrowed ID badge, Liana entered St. Callista under pre-dawn shadows. She followed the lower stairwell, past sublevel 2. At the bottom, a rusted door with no electronic lock, just a keyhole. She inserted the key. The hallway beyond smelled sterile and silent, like a morgue pretending to be something else. Flickering lights buzzed above as she walked through the corridor. Doors lined either side, labeled by codes, X1A, X1B, X2A. Then she reached it. Room XA107. She peeked inside. There were 4 beds, each occupied. For drips, EG monitors, ventilators. And in the far right corner, her mother. Liana gasped. Alive. Eyelids fluttering faintly. Tubes in her nose and throat. A tag hung by her wrist. Subject ID, HAL07. Status, neural suppression stable. Trial phase, stage 4 conditioning. Directive, no family notification. Liana stepped inside. The room was wired with ceiling-mounted cameras. She unplugged the nearest terminal, pulled up the internal logs. Entries began 18 months ago. The data read like a lab experiment. Her mother was being given doses of SE9, a psychoactive sedative designed to suppress trauma and rebuild behavior loops. Each dosage was followed by a conditioning session. And there were others. Patients marked as John Doe, Jane 3, Hal 04. Many were listed as either dead or missing on hospital records. They weren't dead. They were preserved, controlled. A test group, a human database. Her mother had been legally deceased on paper for 16 months. But in this lab, she'd been reconditioned, her mind scraped and rebuilt like software. Suddenly, a voice from behind. "I hoped you'd never find this." Liana spun around. Dr. Gregory Havelock stood in the doorway. Not in scrubs, in a full lab coat. The embroidered patch read, "Halcyon Protocol, Lead Administrator." He stepped inside, calm as ever. "You always had her eyes," he said, glancing at the bed. "What did you do to her?" Liana hissed. "I saved her. From herself. From the breakdown. From the memories she begged us to remove." "You erased her," Liana growled. "You turned her into a shell." Havelock sighed. "Do you know what trauma does when it festers? Do you know what your mother did to deserve placement in Halcyon? She was a whistleblower. She was unstable," he said coolly. "She threatened to expose something she never fully understood." What was she trying to expose? She believed we were creating a mind control network, using trauma survivors as baseline subjects. Liana's eyes widened. "And were you?" He smiled. She wasn't wrong. Havelock stepped closer. The lights above flickered again. "You're not here by accident, Liana. You think you're the first to stumble on this," he said, gesturing around the ward. "You're not." He tapped a button on a nearby panel. The monitors shifted, revealing surveillance feeds of other hospital wards. Staff moving mechanically. Nurses repeating scripted dialogue. Everything in this hospital is controlled, calibrated, perfected. He faced her again. "You're smart, resourceful, a natural leader. That's why you were hired." He pulled a folded file from his coat. Her file. "From the first day of hiring. This was never about you being a nurse. You were part of Halcyon from the start." He offered her a pen. "Sign on. Join the next phase. Or..." He glanced at her mother. "You walk away. And we shut her off, for good this time." Liana stared at the contract, her pulse thudding in her ears. She took the pen, pretended to sign, then jabbed it straight into Havelock's hand. He screamed. She shoved him aside, ripped out her mother's 4 and neural port. Alarms blared. She dragged her mother toward the door. But 2 guards appeared, tasers raised. Suddenly, the lights cut out. Then flickered back. Standing between the guards, Jalen, in full IT uniform, holding a jerry-rigged EMP device. "Thought you could use a power outage," he said. He fired the EMP. The monitors burst. The guards collapsed, twitching. Liana and Jalen hoisted her mother and ran. Scene 7 to 6 a.m. Parking garage, blood oath. They reached Jalen's van in the staff garage. Her mother was breathing, barely conscious, murmuring in half-coherent sentences. "Where do we go?" Liana asked, shaking. "There's a safe house," Jalen said. "We've helped others out before. You're not the first. You've done this." He nodded. "I lost my sister to Halcyon. She died on paper. But I found her in a ward just like this. She didn't remember me." Tears streamed down Liana's cheeks. "Then let's burn this thing to the ground." Liana and Jalen uncover the hospital's black file, a hidden archive of every patient used in Halcyon. But there's more. A top donor linked to international arms contracts, a mind control software prototype, and a coming public mass test already underway at another hospital. With only hours left before the data wipes clean, Liana must decide who she can trust and how far she's willing to go to expose the truth, even if it means sacrificing herself. The safe house wasn't much, a converted maintenance shed behind a defunct outpatient clinic, but it had what they needed: shielding, offline computers, and no surveillance. Liana laid her mother on the cot. Jalen handed her a blanket and an IV bag to keep her stabilized. "She's holding on," he said, checking the vitals. "Barely." Liana nodded, jaw tight. "Then let's find what they're hiding." Jalen booted up his encrypted drive and pulled up a terminal. He typed access/halcyon control archive/personnel-index/blackfile.root. The screen hesitated, then populated. A list. Over 3,000 names. Each tied to St. Callista. Patients. Volunteers. Even children from the pediatric psych unit. Each name linked to a status: conditioned, in progress, dormant, or deceased. Liana scrolled. Her own name was there. So was her mother's. But one name stopped her cold. Dr. Eric Murrow, donor access, project investor clearance, Global Protocol 1. She remembered the name. Her mother had mentioned him once in a half-delirious state. The man with the smile of a saint and the eyes of a snake. A man who was never on the staff registry but had a private elevator to the R&D wing. "Who is Murrow?" Liana asked. Jalen's face darkened. "You don't know." He pulled up an article from a whistleblower Substack. Dr. Eric Murrow, biotech investor, military intelligence consultant, and CEO of Virex Systems, a defense contractor working with DARPA on neuromapping tech since 2007. "What's he doing funding a public hospital?" she asked. "Because St. Callista isn't just a hospital," Jalen said grimly. "It's a testing ground." They opened Murrow's patient trial logs, video files, neural mapping results, military clearance codes. Liana clicked one labeled Group Trial, Phase 5, External Deployment. The footage played. A man in his 20s, clean-cut, patient gown, eyes vacant. A voice off-screen. Subject 4412, Activate Loop Protocol. The patient began repeating a phrase, "I am safe. I will comply. I remember nothing." Then his demeanor changed. He stood up, walked to the nurse calmly, then suddenly grabbed a scalpel from her belt and slashed her throat. Liana recoiled. The camera feed kept rolling. Guards dragged the woman's body away. The patient was restrained and reset. "This isn't therapy," Liana whispered. "It's mind control training." Jalen leaned in. "Not just here. Look." He pulled a second file. Deployment sites active phase. 8 hospitals. All across the country. One of them, Bright Marsh Medical Center, a pediatric facility known for its neurodevelopmental program. "They're expanding," Jalen said. "And no one knows," Liana said. "No one who's still alive." Jalen's terminal blinked. Automatic system wipe initiated. Time remaining, 4 hours 19 minutes. "They're wiping everything," he said. "All servers, all backups. Even the AI cache. Then we leak it," Liana said. "Send it all to the press. Encrypted press won't accept raw uploads. We need an access key." He paused. "There is one way." He pulled up a profile, Dr. Stacy Voss, data steward, executive IT liaison. She has clearance. Her card can override the wipe. "Where is she?" Jalen typed again. "Looks like she's offsite today. Hosting a conference at," he froze. "Bright Marsh Medical." "Of course she is," Liana whispered. "They're deploying Phase 6. Liana borrowed a nurse's badge from Jalen's stash. Her hair tied up, coat pressed, she looked the part. Jalen patched her with a hidden mic. "If you get inside, find her badge, clone it, and get to a terminal. I'll walk you through the transfer," he said. Liana's mother remained at the safe house, sedated, but her pulse had stabilized. "Come back," she murmured once, barely conscious. Liana squeezed her hand. "I will. I promise." Then she slipped out. Bright Marsh was sleek and modern. Marble floors. Glass elevators. Smiles on every face. But behind the smiles, she could feel it. The same sterile control as St. Callista. Too clean. Too perfect. She spotted Voss in the conference room on the 3rd floor. Tall, brunette, in an indigo pantsuit, laughing with colleagues. Liana approached, fake chart in hand. "Dr. Voss?" she said sweetly. You've been requested by Lab A7. Something about the neural interface malfunctioning. Voss frowned. That shouldn't be possible. She followed Liana down the hall. As they entered the side corridor, Liana turned, swift and silent, and jabbed a sedative pen into her neck. Voss slumped. Liana dragged her into a storage room and shut the door. She worked fast. Cloned the badge. Photographed her face and ID. Then whispered into her mic, "We've got it." Back in the van, Jalen opened a secure connection to whistleblower networks. He uploaded the black file. It hit 20%, 40%, 70%. Then the screen flickered. A virus alert popped up. Firewall breach, incoming block attack. "They're trying to shut the line," Jalen said. "I can't stop them alone." Liana stared at the screen. The percentage slowed. 73%, 73.5%, 74%. She remembered something. "The satellite cache," she said. "What?" "In the lab, they stored backups in a satellite-based off-grid node. My mother mentioned it once. If we patch the upload through it, they can't intercept it." Jalen's fingers flew. "We'll have 30 seconds before they burn the connection." "Do it." He rerouted. The screen jumped. 80%, 90%, 100%. Upload complete, the terminal read. Liana leaned back, exhausted. Then the van shook violently. "Get down!" Jalen shouted. A black SUV slammed into them from behind. Two masked men emerged, black tactical vests, no insignia. Shots rang out. Liana ducked. Jalen grabbed a smoke grenade and tossed it. The alley filled with gray haze. They crawled out the side and ran. Bullets pinged metal. Glass shattered. But they didn't stop running. An hour later, the news cycle exploded. Breaking: whistleblower leak reveals mind control trials at U.S. hospitals. Human experimentation, neurological reprogramming, and illegal military funding confirmed in 7 public health institutions. Photos of the patient logs, the black file, and even Murrow's communications went viral. The public response was immediate. Federal agents raided St. Callista. Protests erupted outside Bright Marsh. Victims' families demanded answers. The story dominated every screen, every platform. And yet, Murrow was nowhere to be found. Vanished. As the truth erupts across the nation, Liana receives an anonymous tip, a hidden bunker beneath an abandoned research facility where Patient Zero of the Halcyon program is still alive. But when she arrives, what she finds shakes her to her core. The first test subject is someone she knows. And they've been waiting for her. The road was barely more than a gravel scar through thick forest. The van's headlights flickered as Jalen drove in silence. Liana checked the coordinates again. "These are the GPS markers from the tip?" she asked. Jalen nodded. Anonymous VPN routed through Prague. No metadata. But it matches an old service map from 2006, government land leased for psychological defense research. Then buried. Liana leaned forward. Through the trees, the shape emerged, a decaying brick facility half swallowed by vines and shadow. No name, no windows, just a steel door with an old keypad. A red light blinked. She held up the cloned clearance card from Dr. Voss. The light turned green. They were in. The air inside was stale, sour with antiseptic and mold. Flickering fluorescent bulbs lined the tunnel ahead. They descended a ramp until they reached an elevator, retrofit military design. No buttons, only a biometric scanner. Jalen plugged in a cracked decoder tablet and rewired the panel. With a shudder, the doors closed and the elevator sank into darkness. After nearly a minute, it stopped. The doors opened to a dimly lit corridor lined with observation rooms. Inside, through glass, were rows of empty beds. Broken restraints. Scratched walls. One had a phrase carved repeatedly. "I don't belong to them." They reached a steel vault door at the end. Jalen hesitated. "We don't know what's behind this." Liana stepped forward. "I have to know." Inside, it was silent, too silent. A single chair, a table, and a young woman strapped to a neural interface unit. thin, hair-shaved, tubes in her arms, monitors flashing her vitals. But her face, Liana's breath caught. Rachel, it was her cousin, her missing cousin, the one who vanished from a psychiatric hold 5 years ago. Rachel's eyes fluttered. She spoke, voice dry and mechanical. "Hello, Leah. They told me you'd come." Liana rushed to her side, unbuckling the straps. "Rachel, what did they do to you?" Rachel's hand shot up, clasped Liana's wrist with unnatural strength. "They showed me everything." Jalen aimed a scanner at her vitals. Her readings, they're off the charts. Her neural frequencies have been artificially mapped. "They made me the prototype," Rachel whispered. "Then they lost control." She turned to Liana. "And now they want me gone." As they helped Rachel walk, the facility lights dimmed. A siren began to whine. "Internal lockdown, Protocol 5 initiated." "They found us," Jalen said. Doors sealed behind them, locking each hallway like a trap. Rachel winced. Her body trembled. "I can feel the pulse. They're using satellite neurofrequencies to try and shut me down." Liana steadied her. "Then fight it. You've held on this long." Rachel's eyes blazed with defiance. "They don't control me anymore." She walked ahead, barefoot, wires dragging behind her. The facility's lights flickered. Doors began opening now, by themselves. "She's overriding the system," Jalen whispered. "She's not just connected. She is the network." They found a control hub. Inside were hundreds of data logs. Project name, Neuron. Lead researcher, Dr. Eric Murrow. Prototype candidate, Rachel Lynn Wren. Status, unstable, subject demonstrates rogue neural autonomy. A final note read, subject has formed deep emotional link to biological cousin, Liana Sarai. When under duress, emotional triggers override conditioning protocols. Liana stared at the screen. "They used me to control her," she said. "I wasn't just family, I was leverage." Rachel's voice shook. "I remembered your voice when they tried to blank me out. That's why I never broke." She looked at Liana. "I stayed alive for you." Jalen worked furiously to copy the neuron data. Suddenly, the monitors glitched. A video began to play. Murrow, grinning, pre-recorded. "Congratulations. If you're seeing this, the girl has led you here. That means the experiment worked. Rachel isn't a victim. She's the virus. All her thoughts, her choices, they're already ours. You think you've exposed us, but you've only broadcast the beta test." The screen cut. Rachel stepped back, shaking. "Is it true?" Liana stood between her and the monitors. "No. You are not their weapon." Rachel's voice trembled. "Then help me end this." Rachel walked to the mainframe. "This place runs on redundant AI cores. If we overload the base signal, it'll burn the neural hub and sever the satellite control line." Jalen's eyes widened. "You'll go down with it." Rachel gave a soft smile. "I was never meant to come back." Liana gripped her arm. "No. There has to be another way." "There isn't." Rachel gently placed something in Liana's hand. "A drive. This is everything. The real file. The one they buried." "Finish what I couldn't." They hugged. Long silent. Heavy. Then Rachel stepped into the center of the hub, eyes closed, hands raised. The system crackled. Lights burst. The shockwave knocked Liana and Jalen to the floor. Silence. Liana and Jalen surfaced as smoke billowed behind them. Black helicopters circled above, but no one dared land. By dawn, news drones swarmed the area. Leaked footage of Rachel. Of the bunker. Of the final message. The world changed. Congress launched investigations. Murrow was officially listed as international fugitive. Hospitals across the country were shut down. The Neuron project was exposed. Rachel became a symbol, not of fear, but of resistance. Liana sat under the shade of a willow tree. Beside her, a small plaque. Rachel Lynn Wren. She remembered when they told her to forget. She looked at the drive Rachel gave her. It wasn't just data. It was a map. A list of other facilities. Dormant test sites. untouched. Not for long. Jalen joined her, holding 2 coffees. "You sure about this?" he asked. She nodded. "We shut one down. Now we find the rest." Fade to black. Some truths get buried so deep, it takes a nightmare to dig them up. But nightmares have a purpose. They wake us. Rachel Wren may have silenced one corrupt system, but others are still out there, dormant, hidden, waiting. And Liana Sarai isn't done digging. If this story had you at the edge of your seat, if it made you question what really happens behind hospital walls, inside government labs, or within the shadows of classified medicine, then you're in the right place. Subscribe to Redline Report, where true crime meets unfiltered investigations, psychological suspense, and the kind of storytelling that makes you look twice at the world around you. Drop a comment. What would you have done if you were in Liana's shoes? Tell us below. Share this series with someone who thinks they've seen it all. And don't forget to hit the bell icon, because the next case we uncover might just be happening in your town. This is Redline Report, where every truth leaves a scar.